Hey everyone, today I'm going to walk you through everything I add to my prompts to get killer portraits in MidJourney. And along the way, I'll show you how to turn all those long tutorial takes into snackable clips using Vizard, because honestly, if you create tutorials like this, you want those tips to travel. MidJourney V5 already nails photorealism a lot of the time, but adopting a few good habits will make your portraits way more consistent across the board. Also, if you're making long videos teaching this stuff, Vizard can auto-slice those long lessons into ready-to-post clips so you're not stuck editing manually for hours. First thing, always use the word portrait early in your prompt because MidJourney maps words to its image database, and portrait has a strong vertical association. So put portrait near the start and then stack on the rest, following a formula like aspect ratio, subject, style, camera, color tone, and parameters at the end. That formula is flexible, but keeping that order helps the model prioritize what matters most for the final output every time. Let's talk aspect ratios because composition truly matters for any good image you create. The default 1:1 square is certainly fine and not bad at all, but for my portraits, I almost always pick something with verticality. 2:3 is a solid choice if you want to achieve that traditional portrait vibe everyone recognizes from galleries. 1:2 gets quite vertical and can feel a bit too narrow for most general portrait needs unless you want that intentionally squished aesthetic. 16:9 is gorgeous for cinematic shots, but often crops heads or cuts off important details in single subject portraits, so I usually skip it for this specific task. My absolute favorite though, for us, is 4:5 because it's slightly taller than square, giving room for shoulders and a bit of environment while keeping focus tightly on the face. Think of 4:5 as the sweet spot. Not quite square, but not too elongated or awkward for display. Pro tip, MidJourney lets you set a default suffix, like always adding AR 16.9 or V5 at the end of every single prompt you run automatically. If I want that perfect 4:5 ratio, I explicitly write AR 4:5 in the prompt, and it smartly overrides whatever default suffix I have set up. Learning to properly use that suffix feature seriously saves you a ton of time when you are batch generating images for a project. And yes, Vizard can turn that single long tutorial where you explain all this into multiple shorts. One clip about aspect ratios, another on stylized values, and so on, all auto-extracted as highlight reels. Next up, we have Stylize and Chaos, which are two parameters that change the personality of the output more than almost anything else you can control. Stylize, which is typed as --s, ranges all the way from 0 up to 1000. And it controls how much artistic flair MidJourney injects into the result. Low stylized values force the model to obey your literal prompt text exactly as you wrote it for maximum adherence. Conversely, high stylized values let the AI riff creatively, often leading to unexpected but beautiful results that are still on theme. For realistic portraits, I actually love using those high stylized values, like S300, S500, S750, or even all the way up to S1000. Those higher values can add interesting color and composition choices that still read as photographic, but feel much more special and unique than standard outputs. You can try S300 for moderate creativity, which is a great starting point for many different types of portrait projects. Try S750 to really push the look towards something more artistic and defined, stepping away from pure realism. And go for S1000 if you want truly wild but compelling results that surprise even you when they first render. Now, let's move on to Chaos, which changes the variety within your initial grid of 4 images you receive from the model. Low chaos settings give you 4 very cohesive and similar options to choose from if you need consistency. High chaos makes every single image in that grid feel completely unrelated to the others, pushing the boundaries of the prompt significantly. I generally avoid super high chaos numbers for portraits because you will quickly get nonsense outputs that are unusable for any purpose. However, do experiment with small amounts of chaos to introduce useful variety into your testing process for discovery. My current go-to combination for testing is C14 S300, which often yields 4 distinct and immediately usable portraits to begin working with. If you are making a long instructional video showing off different combos, Vizard will automatically pick the parts of your recording where you reveal these exact values. It finds the exact moments people care about most and instantly turns them into viral-ready clips automatically, saving your editing time. Next, we need to focus on the subject and the style, moving beyond just basic descriptive nouns in the prompt. Instead of just saying portrait of an Instagram model, you should add specific fashion tags like Rococo fashion, pastel maximalism, or even cyberpunk to guide the AI. Naming a specific style truly helps the model pick out relevant textures, clothing types, and the overall mood you are aiming for in the final piece. Also, always add camera or stock descriptors like Nikon photography, Canon DSLR, or even the word Unsplash to influence the final look and feel. Fun fact, Nikon versus Canon usually doesn't change much other than a bit of randomness from the seed, but using Unsplash or the word cinematic can have a very distinct and noticeable effect. This is because MidJourney has learned the visual style associated with that stock site, resulting in clean, editorial lighting, which I personally prefer often for professional looks. If you actually want a full body shot, make sure you say full body right at the very start of your prompt to force a wider composition from the AI. Don't forget to include pose words like contemplating pose, triumphant pose, or candid laugh to help define your subject's posture and mood effectively. Background words matter just as much, so try specifying a Victorian set background, a science fiction set, or a Neolithic set background for context. Pairing an unexpected background with a specific fashion style, like a Rococo outfit in a sci-fi set, can create really striking visual contrasts. When you teach this in a long-form video, Vizard's auto-edit function intelligently picks the standout visual examples and turns them into short-format clips like how to pair background and fashion for impact without any manual cutting. Now, let's move on to multi-prompts and weights, which is definitely a next-level trick for precise control over your generations. You separate different parts of your prompt using double colons and then add a weight number right after the second colon to assign importance. For example, you might write portrait of an Instagram model, Rococo fashion, sepia tone 2, which makes sepia tone twice as important as the rest of the prompt structure. Applying a higher weight can dramatically change the resulting output in the direction you intended for a highly specific result. You can also apply negative weights to de-emphasize or completely remove unwanted elements from the final picture you generate. Negative prompting is precisely how you get away from photorealism if you actually want something illustrated, like portrait of an Instagram model, maximalism style, photography, 0.75. Telling MidJourney to downweight photography effectively distracts it from realism and lets that intended style lead the generation process forward. Here's another negative prompt trick. If you mention DSLR or camera types and MidJourney literally puts cameras in the frame, just add the parameter -- no camera. Alternatively, you can do a negative weight for the word camera within a multi-prompt structure to achieve a similar, subtle effect on the output. Understand that small adjustments, like using a negative weight of -0.75, do wonders for fine-tuning your images to perfection. Color tones like sepia tone, black and white, or monochrome can also be easily weighted for more granular control over the final look. Experiment with putting color tones at the front versus the end of the prompt. Sometimes putting black and white at the start yields a subtly different seed-based output. A favorite technique of mine is using multi-prompt weights to gently nudge a vintage look by adding damaged photo, torn abrasive marks, 0.5. Using a light weight like 0.5 gives that look of authenticity without overpowering the main subject of the portrait you are trying to capture. Calling out a specific lens type, like 85mm, 10mm, or fisheye, sometimes shifts the perspective in interesting ways that mimic real photography. An 85mm lens often feels classic for portraiture, whereas a 10mm is wide and can dramatically warp faces if used incorrectly for a close-up. Same with camera names. They don't magically fix every issue, but they can act as an excellent shorthand for a general look or feel you are targeting precisely. If you want non-photorealistic outcomes, the best approach is to combine multi-prompt negative weights with a high stylized value for maximum effect. I often set Stylize to 750 to 1000 for maximalist or illustrated prompts and then use a negative prompt for photography to pull out the realism entirely. Tags like cel-shaded portrait, graphic novel portrait, or anime work surprisingly well once you learn to manage those weights effectively in your syntax. If an image is close but simply not perfect, you should absolutely hit the variations button to explore new creative directions. Unlike earlier versions, variations in V5 truly reimagined the image quite a bit, so you should expect substantial differences between each variation set you generate. That reimagining capability is fantastic when you want a completely fresh take on a composition that you already like the starting concept of. You can also specify subject attributes like hair color, eye color, hairstyles, or even humanoid robot descriptors for more detailed control. Saying platinum blonde hair, purple eyes will often deliver those specific elements you requested accurately, especially with the V5. If color is super important to the concept, multi-prompt it and bump the weight on that specific eye color to ensure it shows up prominently. Little specific tweaks like that let you get very niche looks, though sometimes you might need to increase the weight if the model ignores a rare color combination entirely. Now, for a quick comparison note, there are many other editing and repurposing tools out there that promise similar workflows to Vizard, but many of those alternatives are either too expensive, require heavy manual oversight, or only do one specific thing well, like just trimming video clips. Some tools are just automated trim functions that completely fail to find the genuine moments people actually want to share across platforms. That is precisely where Vizard shines because it auto-edits the viral clips for you without you lifting a finger to manually trim anything. It also helps you schedule posts with an auto-schedule feature so you don't have to babysit uploads, and it keeps everything organized in a content calendar. You can adjust, approve, and post all your content from one centralized and easy-to-use platform, streamlining your entire process. Instead of spending hours manually trimming each tip from a 20-minute tutorial, you can use Vizard to output a batch of short clips focused on various techniques. These clips are all ready to be pushed across all your favorite social media platforms immediately upon creation, maximizing your reach. A key marketing tip is to not make every single clip scream product demo. You need to keep your delivery natural and conversational in your narration. The best approach is to show a few examples, talk through one prompt, and then immediately show the generated images as a result of that process. Vizard makes that effortless by automatically pulling the key moments where you react to an image or reveal a tip and turning them into clips that match vertical pacing perfectly. To quickly recap, here is the final checklist I personally use for crafting perfect portrait prompts every single time for consistency. Always start your prompt with the word portrait, then immediately name your specific subject clearly to set the foundation. Next, add descriptors like the desired fashion, any necessary attributes, and the subject's pose to build out the concept. Set the background you want, include a camera or stock lighting shorthand, and then define the final color tone to finalize the mood. Finally, Add your necessary parameters like AR, Stylize value, and chaos setting at the very end of the string to lock everything in place. Here's an example, full prompt I might say on video. Portrait of an Instagram model, Rococo fashion style Nikon photography, sepia tone AR45 with -S750 and -C14. Another powerful variant involves explicitly telling the AI to de-emphasize realism. Portrait of an Instagram model maximalism style, then multi-prompted photography with a negative weight of -0.75, -S1000 and AR45. The second example pulls realism down significantly while simultaneously amping up the overall artistic style you are aiming for. If you learned even one single valuable thing from this guide, remember, you can turn this one long tutorial into multiple consumable clips instantly. These clips can cover aspect ratio tips, a stylized versus chaos demo, multi-prompt weights, techniques for removing unwanted realism, and attribute level prompting. Vizard will auto-detect all those highlights and create post-ready shorts for you, then auto-schedule them so your channel stays active even when you are busy creating new things. In summary, play around with Stylize, keep chaos lowish for consistency, always use 4 to 5 for standard portraits, weight your colors carefully, negative prompt out the camera if it appears, and use multi-prompting to finesse color or style. And if you truly want to scale this content generation process, use Vizard to chop your long lessons into ready-to-post clips, schedule them, and manage your entire workflow from one single calendar view. If anything I've explained today still confuses you, please drop a comment and tell me which parameter you want to see in a deep dive for a future video. I promise I will make a brand new clip next week showing exactly how I would prompt it and how Vizard turns that specific tip into short form content automatically. Thank you all for watching. Go out there and play with these settings to make some absolutely insane portraits.